catchy music. I just sometimes hear this, It's really catchy music. But welcome everyone to another Civo webinar. Thanks for joining us today. We are streaming live right now. So let us know where you are joining from. My name is Kunal Kushwaha. I work as the DevRel Manager here at Civo. And we're very excited about this session because I'm going to talk about OpenTelemetry with Sudhir. And I don't know if you follow the news, lately we have seen plenty of headlines around major outages, like some social media platform going down, other services going down. And from my experience, as systems get more complex, well, and distributed, you have to keep applications running smoothly, and it gets a little bit complicated. There was actually a recent study by Uptime Institute. I'll try to find it and link it in the description later on, which said that around 70% of the businesses experience at least one significant outage every month. And that's where OpenTelemetry comes in, because you wouldn't know what's going wrong until you can, see what's happening in your system. It's quickly becoming the go-to open source standard for observability, helping us understand what's happening inside our systems so that we can resolve the issues much more faster. And today with Sudhir, we're going to explore how OpenTelemetry can enhance monitoring, integrate with APM tools, and we'll also share some examples of this impact. And since we are doing this live, we'll be happy to answer any questions live as well. You can send those in the chat, and we'll be happy to take it after the presentation and the demos and all these other things. So I'm joined by Sudhir Singh, who is the CEO and co-founder of Cloud Builders. Sudhir, how's it going? And I believe you have a nice presentation for us. So let's jump right in. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kunal. Thanks for having me. So hi everyone. This is Sudhir. I'm co-founder of Cloud Builders. So today's topic, OpenTelemetry, how it can help in making APM better. Let me just give a brief about myself. So I have been seen both the world where I was started as a developer, work as an architect, and then jumped into a the DevOps world, the other side of the operations side, and worked on cloud technologies, worked on DevOps. And for 4 or 5 years, we're running the Cloud Builders, where we are building an observability platform and also do the cloud managed services. So that's about me. And we'll today we are going to talk more about OpenTelemetry and how OpenTelemetry is helping the developers or SRE engineers in the monitoring, application performance monitoring, and overall observability. So we'll share our experience, how we have been doing, and how it can help others. So let me jump into today's first topic, first slide, which is why is APM required? Why you need to worry about application performance monitoring? As Kunal said in his initial introduction, that the outages are very common, right? And you cannot predict outage, right? So it's very essential to know for any kind of high availability and getting a very good user experience, you need to have application performance monitoring built into your system. So the APM is basically a tools or a set of technologies to diagnose any application performance issues before it happens, right? And you do it in real time, right? So you don't do it afterwards, right? It's like doing a root cause analysis, doing a retrofit, or doing a analysis afterward. It happens is the damage is already done, right? Because your users has already seen that outage or the bad experience or the slowness. So the best way to uh, avoid all those things is doing in the real time. uh, so how it is going to help, like it's going to help you in identify those performance bottlenecks uh, uh, in your application, right? And now everybody is building like distributed systems, like that is very common, right? So monoliths are very few, right? Most of the systems which are distributed, they have a lot of microservices, and also they're using third party APIs, like it's the world is like getting integrated, more and more integrated. So you use a SaaS applications, you use third party APIs to to do certain other operations, right? Now finding that where is the bottleneck in the real time is always a challenge, and that's where the APM can help you. uh, the MTTR, right, mean time to recovery or mean time to resolution, is can be reduced very significantly if you have a right APM tools in your hand. Uh, so it's impact the business as well, right? Because no, you can you can get a better experience for your customers, which makes them to be with your application for longer time, right? And this better performance, like in the can directly impact your application uh, uh, retention, like the user retention and other things. So moving on. So now we know that APM is very essential, right? Like to get these for any kind of applications, like especially the microservices distributor application. How do we implement the APM, right? How do we do that? Uh, the That's where the open telemetry comes very handy. And let me tell about like one very good fact about open telemetry. So uh, it's part of the CNCF, right? Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And uh, after Kubernetes, open telemetry is the biggest project in CNCF, which makes it very important. uh, and it is doing a job of standardizing the this whole APM solution, right? So using open telemetry, right? When we use open telemetry, we are using a open source, open standard observability framework, which is making it easier for us to not worry about what we are using as a backend, right? So it's basically you are using a standard, so you are not vendor logged in. You can uh, integrate with other systems very easily. So you can choose any other observability platforms as your backend without worrying about how you are how you are generating the data, or how your open telemetry has been collected, right? It's as I said, it is a second biggest project in CNCF, and there is a huge uh, community behind it. And uh, and it's completely vendor agnostic, right? It is a open standard. uh, it is extendable, right? So there is a community which is already adding more and more tools to it, right? More and more like collectors, the exporter, and those things. So it's like you will never have a lack of those things. You can yourself extend it if required, but you will find a lot of those things already available in the open source community. Uh, so, what are the key areas or key components in Open Telemetry? Right. So, I'm not going into technical details. I'll have a quick demo at the end. But using Open Telemetry, your focus is to capture three things. One is traces, metrics, and logs. Basically, traces are is a life cycle of a request. Like when a request is coming to your application or your distributed services, it goes through a path, right? So how to track that path, right? That's what your trace will do. It will give you a complete path of user request, even if that user request goes to a third party API, right? So if you want to track that, you need the traces. And that helps you in identify that what are the different bottlenecks areas, performance issues, or any failures, right? So what exactly failed in that path, at which API failed or which microservice is not performing, that's trace will give you a good visibility. The second component is metrics. It is basically a representation of your state of your system. Like, okay, how much is the CPU it is consuming currently? How much is the memory consumption? What is the request rate? So how much request per second, right, coming to that system per second or per hour or per minute? And what is the response time, right? Those kind of metrics you can collect using this OpenTelemetry or any kind of observability platform. This helps in a proactive monitoring, alerting any potential issues, like whenever there is a like there is a four uh, uh, in the SRE world. You have there are SRE best practices, so you can take those SRE best practices and implement here for your monitoring, right? So it gives you metrics, and then you can apply your monitoring best practices to set up potential alerts, alerts and other kinds of things. The logs are the third key component of OTel. It is a timestamp records of different events that happen in the application. So you can write a certain data, right? That okay, what happened during that application running, right? So it can use for any kind of debugging, any forensic analysis. Like you will want to look at what was the user request, right? What data he sent, right? Obviously you don't put API data or no some secrets information, but you can put other things in the log for any kind of debugging or forensic analysis later. So that's what you can do using OpenTelemetry, different components. Uh, Now it comes to the question that why OpenTelemetry, right? Why not some traditional tool or any other APM tools, right? The commercial tool. Uh, the simple and the most important reason is the flexibility, scalability, which gives, because it is a vendor agnostic, right? It is not linked to any vendor, right? So if you instrument your code or using OTel, let's say you have a microservice and you want to now observe that microservice, there is an option to just use OpenTelemetry and instrument it, right, very 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 quickly. Now this instrumentation is not going to be changed, right? Even if you want to use any other system, right? This OpenTelemetry is supported by almost all the observability platforms commercially available, and open source platforms as well, like Prometheus or Grafana and other open source tools. So they all have the support for OpenTelemetry formats, OpenTelemetry. So that gives you a like a flexibility and scalability that because of the standard which OpenTelemetry is bringing in. Uh, that gives you a huge community of open source developers who are building the open source addition to the OpenTelemetry. It's very cost effective, right? Because you're not it's open source, and you're not paying any license fees for it. It's a future proofing, because the what my opinion is that the whole world, this observability world, is moving towards APM, and for APM OpenTelemetry is the standard. So if you use the OpenTelemetry now, you literally not have to change anything in the future, right? Whatever changes is irrespective of that. So that's in my opinion, like no very good reasons to use OpenTelemetry for any APM implementation instead of going for other vendor specific tools. um, how do you do that? Like what is the different ways, or how do you plan it? uh, in my opinion, anything you do, you can do a quick POC, right? That should be your starting point, right? There are a lot of material available and OpenTelemetry, how to get started. I'll also give a quick demo at the end. Uh, and once you know that, yeah, this is the right solution for you to solve your observability problem, right? To get your APM implementation, then you need to have a plan, right? Then you need to do a uh, plan your integration approach, right? That okay, that will based on your what kind of applications you are using, like what language you are using, how you're deploying it. Is it container deployment? Is it so that planning you need to do, right? And then you need to define the success metrics, because that's very important when you after, because after you put in your effort, right, you should know that, like, no, is it worth, right? So if you define your success metrics upfront, that okay, I need to reduce my response time, right? I need to reduce my MTTR, right? That I want I want to reduce the number of issues reported by customer. I want to be more proactive. So that those success criteria, those success metrics should be defined upfront. And you should never plan a full phase, a full rollout. You should have a phased and gradual rollout. uh, Align your goal with the business goals, right? Like what business want, right? And align both, so that you get a good support from the business. So you can basically if you have any existing APM tools, right? Like if you are using any anyone any backend to store the data, or any other observability platform, uh, uh, see how it can be integrated with OpenTelemetry, right? That's very easy right now. Most or almost every the observability platforms are supporting the OpenTelemetry. You just need to find out that what's the integration mechanism. Uh, Leverage the OpenTelemetry ecosystem. So OpenTelemetry has its own set of different open source tools, technologies. There are a lot of uh, material available. So just try to first go through that before trying to build something new, and integrate it with your uh, I mean, so basically anything you do, you have to continuously monitor and do it iteratively. So that should be your approach. That should be your path to the getting the OpenTelemetry used for your APM. So I have a reference architecture to share with you, and this is very similar with what we use in our product as well. So uh, this is where you can basically take some open source backend systems like Prometheus, Grafana. Prometheus is very good for storing those logs, metrics, right? And for logs, you can use Loki, or there are other um, uh, backend system for traces. You can use Tempo. So there are these open source, very mature open source backend systems available, and then you can build using that your own observability platform, which is based on the open source. And then you can get your collections instrumented using Hotel, right? So you can, let's say you are running a Lambda, right? So uh, you can instrument that, right? If you're running an application on a on a server in a virtual machine, or you're running any other things, you can pretty much instrument instrument that using hotel, and then that comes to hotel collector. That hotel collector is one point where you can collect all this data and then store it. Your Grafana is your dashboard, or your visual representation, right? So the Grafana will give you the alerting mechanism. It will give you reports, dashboards, and all those things you can do. And then you can integrate it with other tools which we want to use it for. I just gave some examples, right? It doesn't have to be the same tool. It is just an example. You can use any other tool for incident management, or ticketing, and other things. And you can integrate it with your notifications, with your communication channels, right? Emails, or any Slack or Teams, or whatever Google spaces you're using. So you can integrate with that. That's a reference architecture which you can utilize to implement the hotel, and then surrounding other open source technologies to make it work. Uh, just sharing a quick success metrics from one of implementation we did. There was, as I said, like, no, it helps in mean time to recovery, and we see like a good 50% reduction. It used to take like few hours. Now it's taking few minutes to detect an issue and fix it. uh, the response time, right, the latency or the response time was reduced, because now the team can see those traces and find out the bottlenecks and fix them. Error rates are reduced, right? And the biggest advantage is that now there is a proactive approach, right? So the issues are not coming from customer, like the SRE team, or like the monitoring team, or the developers. They can identify the issues themselves. It's more a proactive approach than reactive, right? Where customer reports and then we go and check. It becomes a proactive approach. The one of the my biggest favorite is that now developers can focus more on development, so that increases their productivity. Um, so that comes to the last part of this presentation, a demo. Let me share my screen for demo. Yeah. So I'm using this GitHub repo for some sample applications, right? I can share, some customers, So I took this sample application, and we have set up these different applications for demo purpose. This is very simple. Like, we have these applications running OpenTelemetry SDK, and then they send the data to a collector, and then we have Prometheus and Tempo to store those metrics or traces, and Grafana as a dashboard, right? So this a different open source technologies we are using. How There are two ways to do the instrumentation. Mostly, if you're starting, you can go with the zero code instrumentation, or where you just need to have the SDKs dropped into your application. So if you're using a Java Spring Boot kind of application, this is the way, right? So you don't need to change any code. Your jar, before running your jar, you can just add these lines which says hyphen Java agent, and then OpenTelemetry Java agent dot jar, right? So that will do a instrumentation of the code, and then you'll start receiving traces, metrics, and logs. So to start with, zero code instrumentation is very good, very easy. And then if you want to get more insights, more data points, then you can create a code-based instrumentation. So you can go to your code and create the spans, right? You can add more attributes, more values to the spans, and then export them. So this is more I would say expert, right? And or if you need any specific details which are not available in the zero code, you can always write some code, I mean modify your code and get that kind of metrics. So for this is how you instrument a Java application. And there is a Python application, fast API. You you This is how you run that fast API, right? So uh, uh, so this is where you run before running the Python and then your application. You add these things, OpenTelemetry instrument, and different parameters, different command line options, and then that runs your that your instrument, your Python code. So without changing the Python code, just while running, you can give these options and it will start. Same thing for the node application. So you can just add hyphen require and this your node library path, and that will instrument it. So this library, this particular code base are very useful if you're starting fresh. I'll just show you, some of the examples which I have. So this is one example where we have. So this is the same sample applications we are running, and these are the traces we got. Let me open one trace here. This trace. So this trace would give us like no different path any request would take. So this one trace means one request, and this is what it has it has gone through, right? So the different path and what each path took time, right? And then some other details can be added here, like attributes, resource attribute, span attribute. And there is also a very good graphical representation of it. So it shows what are the different path it took, and yellow or red ones are the one which took more time, right? So those are the areas which we need to investigate. So you can do a lot of other things here, like you can do a search, right? Particular thing. This gives us a trace traces. The second thing is the metrics, and so this is the same Node.js application here, and this dashboard is being created based on the different metrics we are receiving after instrumenting the code. And this is like a total request where this is success request, which are 3 access error, which are 500 errors, right, which is 400 errors. So this is different request count, different request distribution, which particular endpoint is most used, loading distribution. These are the different request rates, right? This is the latency metrics, PR95 percentile, 95 percentile, and different average latencies, right? So this one is taking most time. So this gives a good overview of different metrics. We can change the application and see for other application what are the different metrics available. So yeah, so this is metrics. Same way the logs are coming here. We can check. We can see the logs here. Other than these things, we can also get infrastructure metrics. So I was always talking about application performance metrics, but OpenTelemetry can be useful for getting the infrastructure metrics, like CPU utilization, disk, network in out, right? So this also can be done. Also, any kind of other applications which you are running, like say you're running a database on a virtual machine, you can get those metrics also. So not only the open application performance monitoring, there are you can get infrastructure metrics as well. So yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about here today. Over to you, Kunal.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing, Sudhir. And folks, if you have any questions, feel free to share it in the chat. It's being recorded as well, so you can reach out to cloud builders later on if you have any further questions. But it's a really interesting presentation, Sudhir. Thanks a lot for sharing. I want to have some questions around what you just mentioned. I really liked your point around giving developers time to focus on what truly matters, which is building. And open telemetry is usually talked about quite a lot for monitoring. I personally have seen some of the teams that start using it to change how they design and debug their applications as well. Have you come across any of these use cases where it's influenced the development process itself in any unexpected ways?
Yeah, that's like almost every application which we work with, right? Or every customer we work with, it does that. So it's like no, it's considered a DevOps or SRE best practice, but it's affect the developers most. And I like I when the developers see it, their face gets lighten up, right? They know, oh, this is really good. I can really take a look at it. So they take it in a positive way, right? Because this is going to help them in improving the code quality, like the response time, and ultimately the user experience. So I've seen every time, like every project, the developers are taking it very positive way. They're very happy to use this, right? And once they see the result, right, they go and look at those traces, look at those metrics, especially the traces, right? So the developers, they like the traces, how it pinpoints the respective bottlenecks in their application code. So yes, I mean, it's really helping the developers in a very good way.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. But do you think so we were talking about, it being aiming to be a standard for observability, but do you think there's a risk of trying to standardize too much? Like, have you seen any teams struggle when they need to customize it for their own needs, for example? So how do you think that teams keep a balance between following the standard and tailoring it to fit their own unique setup?
Yeah, so this standardization is required for once, like where we are collecting the data, right? So like in my code, I need to instrument it, right? Now if I use open telemetry, it is standardizing that process, the collection process. But at the same time, it is giving me flexibility to choose any tool I want for my backend, right? So if I want to use a open source based like Grafana, Prometheus, any other open source based, I have that option. Or if I want to, my organization want to go for a commercial tools like New Relic, Datadog. There's so many commercial tools. I have that options, right? It's like there is now a interface, right? Like, so everything is abstract. So the data collection part is standardized. You have flexibility to choose the backend now. So that's basically is helping everyone, like even the open source community, as well as the tools, the existing observability platforms. Yeah.
Yeah. So just the plethora of options that you have because of
Right.
that standardization. And you mentioned about collecting data, right? I want to talk a bit more about that. So obviously we've noticed like, okay, while you're collecting telemetry data, which is, let's say, okay, relatively easy, but then the other thing is making it truly useful, after you've collected the data. So what I'm trying to say is that in your experience, have you seen any effective ways to bridge that gap between, okay, I have all of this data, and then I need to actually be, solving problems with it. So while getting all of that data is relatively easy, how do you make it truly useful?
Yeah, that's really interesting question, right? A very good question. So now we have a lot of data. Now how do we utilize the data, right? So that's where your SRE or your monitoring practices comes in, right? So you how do you set up some alerts, right? You how do you query it? How do you create your dashboards, right? So you need to have a good dashboard where which highlights that, right? That okay, these are the metrics. This is, and it is very customized, right? That is not, there is no standard, or there is no one fit solution for all, right? That has to be like as per each project, each company, right? They might have their own priorities. Like for few, no, the response time is very critical, right? Or error rate is very critical. I mean, it is critical for everyone, but for few, it is number one. So they can create those kind of dashboards, right? Those kind of alerting systems, which highlight according to their needs. So yes, I mean that's a different ballgame, right? You're making developers' life easy to collect the data, but now your SRE engineers should
Yeah.
also use the data.
No, 100%. Like I know everyone has a different what's the word I'm looking for here? Priority in terms
Yes.
of like what they want to achieve and metrics and all sorts of things. But do you think there are any trade-offs that teams should be aware of? Like for example, how can they balance getting enough insights without overloading their systems? Because I have heard concerns from some teams about the potential overhead from collecting too much detailed data with open telemetry. But how do you balance this depth and overload? Like I know I answered it briefly, but what
Right.
what are some trade-offs that teams should be aware of? Like I know like you can't get everything, right? So how do you measure this trade-off?
Right. I mean, and it's very good point, right? Because there is a cost involved to it, right? So if you are collecting a lot of data, it's going to cost you, and then for storage, and also like the retention period. So if you are going to retain that data for longer time, obviously you are paying for the storage. So yeah, that's very important to understand that what you need to collect, and how long you are going to retain, right? So if you don't need to retain it for more than certain amount of time, then don't do it. Like just purge the data. Otherwise your infrastructure cost is going to shoot up very soon. So that's one trade-off, right? Like no, you need to aware of that. No that how do you manage the cost of your this observability platform, overall cost, at the cost of ownership, not just the software cost, but overall ownership of the cost of ownership. And other things is that like no, which we do normally is like no, have a switch, right? Which can no switch off these data, right? And that okay, I know if you're seeing that okay, there are some applications you don't need to, they are not very critical, okay, then you can just switch them off, right? So that's another thing we can try, right? But yeah, there is a there should be a very very what data you are collecting, you should be linked to your priorities, right? You should not collect a lot of data. Yeah.
There's a question by one of the audience members, Pankaj Rawat. Pankaj is saying we already have APM and log aggregation tool set up and standardized. Cool. What will be the benefit to use OpenTelemetry? And since we have to spend the time to migrate to OpenTelemetry standard, is this investment worth it?
Uh, yeah, I think in my opinion, yes. So one thing is that if you are happy with your current the APM solution, the log aggregation, yeah, you can continue with that. But at the hotel is help will help you the standardize the collection process, right? So it's like basically it will make you future proof. So tomorrow, if you are not very happy with your tool, right, you can switch it. So it's like in future you can choose another tool, but you don't need to change much, right? It is just that in your APM, wherever you are giving, there is a URL, you just need to change that URL, right? So that change will be easy. You can try it, as I said, like you can try a POC, you can see that benefit which you are getting, and plan for it. But in my opinion, yes, it's worth investing, switching to the hotel.
Yeah, but that's what I have seen, not just with OpenTelemetry, but well, most technologies, the pushback, the resistance to change. And
Mm.
when we talk about OpenTelemetry, what kind of pushback have you come across for that, and how can the teams who are trying to suggest it to the, let's say, the leadership team to implement these practices and standards, get past those hurdles? Because I've seen resistance from teams, when it comes to adopting new tools, especially if they're already heavily invested in existing systems like Pankaj just mentioned. Same thing with like platform engineering. We did a survey, and resistance to change is like the number one bottleneck to trying new things. So what would you recommend to such teams to overcome these hurdles?
Yeah, so one of the thing is that, like, you need to know what is your pain point, right? So if your customer experience, user experience is your pain point, like, then no or like response time or error rate, right? Or maybe the combination of all these, right? So you need to dig deep and find that, okay, what is going wrong, right? Where you need to improve, right? And then define your success criteria, that, okay, yeah, I want to improve my response time by 50% or 80%, or I want to reduce this. Once you have these metrics, right, it is very easy to get a buy-in, right, from your top management, and also it's very easy to measure that, okay, is it worth the investment you are doing, right? Even open telemetry or even open source or maybe free, but there is a investment in terms of time, right? Your time, your management time, and also the infra cost. So there is there is some investment going, and then you need to define your success criteria. If you have your success criteria, that, okay, this is the things I want to change, and this is my criteria, I think that will make the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it easier to show the benefits. Like, okay, initially, let's say there is this much amount of resources that we are allocating to do this, but the benefits outweigh the the
Right.
initial costs. Because you're right,
Right.
it's not just the cost for like new tooling and everything, but I think time is very critical, because
Right.
that's time is not free for
Right.
of developers. They need to get paid.
Mm.
But from my understanding, from what we have discussed till now, it's, I think, much more about the tools. It's also, maybe you have noticed any shift in team culture or collaboration after implementing OpenTelemetry, right? Because
Mm.
sometimes you see that if someone is adopting, ideally, let's say OpenTelemetry, let's say they're not just improving monitoring, that's a separate part, but the whole team culture around it. So also changing how developers and the operations folks work together, for instance. So I think there's this shift of observability culture in teams after they adopt OpenTelemetry.
Yeah, there is a definitely there is a shift, and there are both ways. So you said, from the developer and the operations team or observability team or SRE team, that their collaboration. I've seen, I'll come to that point, but before that, I've seen very interesting collaboration between the different development teams. So basically, when you are working in a distributed system, like, there are different teams, there are, who owns the different microservices. Now, collaboration between them, right, it can be enhanced, right, when you bring it. And I've seen it in multiple places, where, like, no people not now they don't have to blame each other, right? Okay, that which microservice is bottleneck, because you see a distributed trace, right, and say everybody can see that same picture, and then, so there is no blame game, there is nobody is pointing finger at each other. Everybody see the same picture, and they work collaboratively. So that between the teams there is a enhanced collaboration, and obviously that it is helping the SRE teams, right, the observability or monitoring teams to know the those metrics faster, right, or easily. So they don't need to, right, really rely on only the infrastructure metrics, right? So without observability or without APM, what happens is you are only relying on infrastructure metrics, like, okay, your hardware is CPU is going more or memory is going more. Now you are getting the insights from your application itself, which is more useful. So it's like now SRE teams can like can monitor it much better. So definitely there is a benefit to the SRE teams when observability or APM solutions are implemented.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. And another question from the audience. Bharat is asking, have you ever encountered situations where spans were missing or disconnected in your traces? How did you resolve them?
Uh, so similar spams were missing or disconnected in your traces. How did you resolve them? Yeah, this is a more technical question. Yeah, I can answer that. So basically, it's a more where we need to implement certain that what you call it, like how do you track the distributed traces. So you need to have certain context added to your traces, so that they can be captured across multiple distributed systems. So yeah, it is more technical detail. How do you capture that traces across different systems, right? It's possible. I mean, you need to set the right those parameters.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Bharat. I think yeah, you're 100% right. I think missing or disconnected spams, like oftentimes I think if I look at the number one reason, it's misconfiguration. You know,
Right.
sometimes let's say if you're setting any limits on the data collection on your end as well, I would just say double check your settings and configurations. And that's the advice I can give off the top of my head. Cool, but thanks for the question, Bharat. I appreciate it. Cool. Right, we are closing in. If anyone has any other questions, we have around like a few minutes left. But just looking ahead, into the future, have you seen any like, for example, we see that teams are reacting to issues. That's fine, but they're reacting to issues after the issues have occurred. Have you
Right.
ever seen an example of, let's say, any team that has successfully shifted to a more, what do you call it,
Proactive.
future-proof, predictive monitoring using
Right.
OpenTelemetry, where they can catch the issues before they even escalate? Have you seen those
Yes.
examples?
Yes, and I've seen that examples in recent projects, recent customers which we implemented, and developers were very happy to know to see this data, and they were like, okay, whenever they are building a new microservice or a new API endpoint, any request, right? They were like looking forward to this log, so they were no they were proactively checking it, that okay, what is my what are the traces in their development, or in their lower environment, like the UAT or non-production environment. So they know that, okay, know what can happen, right? So they were like proactively monitoring it, before even it goes to production, and the SRE teams monitor it. They themselves, I've seen examples where developers would proactively do it and then fix it. So they are like using this for their own iterative development, and fixing the performance bottlenecks before even releasing the code. So yes, that's future proofing. That's basically trying to be more proactive than reactive. I've seen that examples.
Yeah, I saw that at KubeCon. I was speaking to some people. There was a booth, and yeah, that was pretty interesting. Cool. Don't feel like we have any new we have one new question. We have a question by Wisdom. How does OpenTelemetry handle sensitive data, and what measures are in place for data privacy and security?
Sure. So, see, OpenTelemetry won't capture any sensitive data or any application data, any PI data, right? It is capturing only the trace and the metrics, right? Unless until you decide to put some data. With OpenTelemetry has an option where you can write your code. You can instrument your code by writing some lines in that, and there you can decide to add the span and then add some data to span, which is perfectly fine. So that could be your own measure, right? And that's your own decision, that what you want to put it. I mean, by mistake you can put the sensitive data also there, but what you need to do is then you need to run right tool, like some kind of a code analysis tool, or like static code analysis tool, or some other tools, to make sure that your developers are not putting any kind of sensitive data inside those spans. So it's very much possible when you are uh, instrumenting the code, and not in the default option, but when you are creating a span and putting an attribute in that. But you need to scan it. You need to make sure that you have your best DevOps practices there, right? Which can stop these things from happening.
Yeah, yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for sharing, Sudhir, and thanks for the question, Wisdom. My last question is just around the whole industry, like not just OpenTelemetry, but staying relevant in this rapidly changing space. So do you see any upcoming trends in observability, or maybe some trends where you think that OpenTelemetry is particularly very well positioned for? For example, I have seen how quickly cloud native technologies evolve, right? So
Yeah.
we all have seen that. You look at the landscape, how it was like a few years ago, which doesn't seem so far away. I'm curious about where you see OpenTelemetry going in the next, I don't know, next few years.
Yeah, so I mean, so there are a lot of new things getting added into the Open Telemetry. So it's like enhancing in a big way, and I think it's like the distributed systems are more important, more critical, and that we see that a lot of the value add which is coming is in the distributed system. And now everybody is going towards using some kind of AI in that. So I mean, Open Telemetry also will adapt to it, and then help in that. So we have seen some of our customers, they started using Gen AI and Open AI. So now for them also, this is going to help, right? Like they are getting some kind of um, performance metrics from there, right? Like especially the traces, because that's a different ball game, right? That how it's not a simple algorithm, right? That maybe you need to do a different kind of monitoring, or different kind of debugging you need, right? So Open Telemetry is definitely going to help there also. We've seen people using Open Telemetry in the the AI applications, Gen AI application, because that's where
Mm.
the things are moving. So that's an interesting space. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we had to. Well, we can't ignore AI implementations in
Right.
the cloud ecosystem. Um, yeah, it's coming, and it's not just coming; it's here, and
Yeah.
we're excited to see how customers use it. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing, Sudhir. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining. This was
Thank
really
you.
fun, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks.